Okay, let's get started. Let's talk about how you log in to the simulation. So once you've registered, you get your participant activation key, PAK, and you also will have a 4-digit password for your team that you get from me. And go to this website, log in as a student, enter your PAK, click this green button here. And then once you get here, you'll enter your industry name, which is the animal name. You'll input your team name, which in this case I believe will be S, and then your 4-digit password, again, that I give you. And then once you've done that, you get here. And this is what the kind of main dashboard looks like. All these buttons are links to screens that are a place where you can either do things or find information. If you go into the videos page in Blackboard, you will find a video tutorial for every one of these boxes. Company results through tools. The side is where you go and actually make the decisions themselves. All right, so first thing as a team, what you want to do is decide on a name. The first letter should be or must be your team letter, which I believe in your case is S, and then you can give it a couple more letters. Just for fun, there's nothing required there, it's just for fun, okay? You'll always want to check your budget. Remember, you get a marketing budget every single period, and so you always want to take a look at it and see where you're spending your money, because that will help you as you move forward into this next period. Also, there are errors and warnings that show up. There are certain things, if you do, it's going to tell you either you cannot do that or you shouldn't do that. Things that you cannot do, typically it will prevent you from moving forward. But sometimes there are warnings. Sometimes it's that's not a good idea. Are you sure you want to do that? Like if you drop your price by 300%, it's going to say, well, the market's not going to really like that. They're going to wonder what's wrong, so it's not going to go very well. Okay. If you do not change, say, your commercial team from one period to the next, being a computer, it only does what we tell it to do. It's going to think that you forgot to update your commercial team, so it'll give you this message. But if you did intend to keep your commercial team where it is, then you wouldn't have to worry about this error. And if the error really bothers you, if it makes you feel better, you can delete the numbers on the commercial team decision screen and then retype them back in. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so any decision screen that you don't visit, it's going to think that you just forgot, and it's going to remind you of that. That's all, but you can ignore it if you feel like you need to. So how do you do well? You've got to be able to position your brands to be attractive. You've got to be able to create new brands as well. Okay, so you've got this kind of disconnect potentially between how you think your brands are and what consumers think your brands are, and so you need to make sure that you understand consumers so you can line up their perceptions with your perceptions, or even better yet, the reality of your brands. Okay, so we have these perceptual maps, which is talked about in one of the tutorial videos, but quite simply, this shows you all of the brands in the market and all of the segments in the market, and you can see kind of how you're perceived. And it shows you how close you are to the ideal values of any particular segment. It shows you who your closest competitors are, and also shows you areas of opportunity. So it's a very, very useful bit of information to have. Okay, so as things move along, you will see that your perceptions can shift. We have two types of units for these perceptual maps. You can do them based on what's called multidimensional scaling, which you can read about in the handbook. You can also do it based on semantic values, which again you can also read about in the handbook. Okay, so this screen here just basically shows you that you need to think long term, know that customers' preferences evolve over time, and know that as new brands enter the market, it can change perceptions, it can change lots of things, it can kind of suck momentum away from your brands if they're done right. So there are lots of things going on in terms of positioning that you need to account for. Okay, 2 ways to reposition a brand. The first one is using advertising. There's these tools called perceptual objectives. You can use them to specify what you want an advertisement to say in terms of which attributes and levels of attributes you promote. You can also go through R&D and basically just physically change the characteristics of a brand. Okay, if you're needing to change perceptions a little bit, advertising generally can do the trick. But if you want to change your perceptions by a lot, then R&D is going to have to be what you do. You create a low quality product, you can't automatically promote it as high quality product and be believable. So what you would need to do is change the configuration of the product, up the quality in order to promote it as quality. But again, small changes, advertising can work. Okay. Positioning through advertising, we just talked about. These perceptual objectives, again, I mentioned, will allow you to move perceptions in the direction of an ideal segment. So what you want to do is you want to know kind of what the ideal values are for whoever you're trying to target, and then try to change perceptions of your brand in that particular direction. Okay, so once you kind of have done the research and you know that, you can use the perceptual objectives down here to indeed attempt to change perceptions. Okay, one thing to focus on here is this advertising research figure here. Like it says here, you want to spend 10 to 15% in advertising research, which will help this right here be more effective and more persuasive. It basically is allowing the advertising team to spend money to better understand the market, to better understand their wants and needs and what they respond to, and thus create ads that will do such a thing. Okay, positioning through R&D. If perceptual objectives aren't going to work, you can use R&D. So you've got these brand characteristics for the Sonites. It's price, processing power, display size, and so on. You can create or update the attributes of any particular brand using R&D. So you're physically going to ask for a different display size, a different processing power, value, maybe a higher battery life or whatever. Somehow it has to be linked to what consumers are into. And then once R&D has created this prototype and it is completed, then you can use it to modify or create an existing brand. So this is kind of the most challenging thing in the simulation, other than maybe production estimates, to wrap your heads around. Okay, so first of all, R&D should be used to either modify existing brands or to create new brands. But regardless of which you choose, every modified or existing brand starts with an R&D project. If you don't have an R&D project, you can't do anything. You don't go in and just basically say, I want this brand soft, for example, to now be, have a better display size. You've got to go through the R&D process to make that happen. So it delays things at least a period. And so you've got to kind of wrap your head around that. Okay, so the way you do R&D is you go into the R&D decision screen, you click Start a New Sonites project, you give the project, not the product, the project, this is the R&D project, a name, an objective, just what are you trying to do here, then specify features, design, battery life, display size, processing power. You do all those things, click lowest possible, and then click on budget allocated on this period. Click Run an Online Query. It will tell you roughly based on these configurations, assuming you produce 100,000 units, that each unit will cost you $172, and the R&D project itself will cost $30.90, or $3,090,000. Okay, and you can change these numbers again, rerun the query, and see what the new minimum base cost and R&D project cost is. Okay, once you've got to a point where you're happy, again, click on budget allocated this period, make sure this number equals that number. That ensures that the project will be completed in this existing period, or by next period, we should say, assuming you've got the money in your budget. Okay, if you click this, initiate a feasibility study, it will not complete. It will engage in a study that helps you kind of see where you can improve efficiencies and things, and sounds nice from a finance standpoint, but you're going to be doing 8 periods, and the sooner you get products to market, the better. So I wouldn't worry about that. Also, don't specify a base cost, because then you're putting financial constraints on the R&D team. You want to click lowest possible. Okay. So choose a name, enter the characteristics, click lowest possible, allocate your budget, use that online query, and you'll end up with a project that will run during the next simulation decision run. Problem we have is that the physical characteristics are not necessarily linked to the reports that we get. Okay, so yes, we can use what's called the market report to determine the actual characteristics in each of the products in the marketplace, but it doesn't correspond with the ideal values of consumers, which is what you really want to know. They're either in multi-dimension format or they're in semantic scale format. So you will need to do some conversions to make that happen. Okay. So if you look here, we have some graphs that kind of help you do that. Okay. This graph is in the semantic scale, but this can kind of show you exactly roughly what, like say, a semantic value of 4 means in terms of number of attributes. So for processing power, a semantic value of 4 gives you a actual value of about 58, something like that. Okay. So you can do that. There is a place in the handbook where you can actually find a formula to convert this to this, but these tools help as well. Okay, here's the formula I just mentioned. Okay, especially in the Vodite market, you want to use that to determine kind of what the physical characteristics are that you need. Okay, I mentioned, going with the lowest possible base cost is ideal. It's going to make your project more expensive, but it gets you to market quicker. Okay, option 1, the desired base cost gets you a higher margins. Unit margin, that is, but again, it's going to cause some problems because you're putting some constraints, financial constraints on the team, the R&D team. Okay, running the online queries, running the feasibility studies we just talked about. Again, I would never really use this. If you really want to, you can, but again, run the online queries to get the base costs and the project costs, and then just go. Get your products out. Okay? Modifying, launching brands. You've got these completed R&D projects you can use to modify brands or create new brands. So you either want to modify solo to try to move it here, or you want to create a new brand called soccer to compete here. So either of those you would apply one of your completed R&D projects. Okay, so go into brand portfolio, launch a new brand, give it a name, give it a role in the portfolio. This is a note for yourself. You want to base this new brand on this R&D project that you just completed. Any R&D project that is completed is available to be used as the basis for a new brand or for modifying a brand, and they will show up in this drop-down menu right here. Then click Launch the New Brand, and that brand will show up in your brand portfolio. If you want to modify a brand, you click Modify, select the brand you want to modify, write yourself a note, click Modify. You want to base it on what what project, click Confirm, and then that will basically tell the R&D or tell the production team starting next period to base the brand move upon this new R&D project with its different features and attribute levels. Okay. So when you modify a brand, any units left over of the old version of the brand will be considered obsolete and will be sold off to trading companies. So you'll sell them off at a loss, which can be expensive. But again, if it's a brand that's not really selling, holding on to them is expensive too. So you might as well just go ahead and modify the brand, get rid of the obsolete version, and just get going. Same thing if you take a brand out of the market. Any units left over are considered obsolete and will be sold off at a loss as well. Okay. You can do a cost reduction project where you basically just redo the R&D project to try to capitalize on economies of scale and experience curves. And so you can end up with creating the same version of a product or a slightly modified version of the same product at a vastly lower cost. So certainly do this if you get to the point where you feel like it's necessary. Certainly don't have to though, okay? Once you have made your decisions, a deadline happens. I, as the professor, press a couple buttons to run your decisions, and new data then is spit out based on your performance or your inputs and the inputs of the 3 computerized teams. Okay. This screen just shows you that there are new decisions that are introduced in period 2, but again, I will allow these to be included in period 1 as well. I don't necessarily think we need to wait 1 period before allowing you to get into these more detailed features. It is absolutely, completely up to you. So just know that. Okay, and then that's it. So from here on out, it's down to your strategy and your team and your ability to work well together and understand what's going on and think about the simulation and your products in that simulation from a marketing context. Remember, it's all about the consumer. Marketing is all about the consumer. So let that kind of be your guide as you go through this. So that's all I have. Best of luck. There will be some frustration and information overload at the beginning, but I promise you it gets better if you put even just a little bit of effort into it. Okay? Thanks.